Hello, I'm John Feldt, and this is the weekly water outlook for the South. Well, last week I mentioned that the jet stream would be becoming highly amplified, and that has occurred. You've been hearing about all the record heat out in the western U.S., and you can see here that the ridge of high pressure bows well to the north, dips well to the south, and generally speaking, hot and dry under the ridge, and cool and showery under the low pressure, and that's really been the story over the last week. Now, if we look at it from a bigger scale, you can see that the precipitation, like I just described, over the west, generally dry, over the east, generally wet, and Texas is somewhat in the middle here, Texas, Oklahoma. And we have received a bit of rain over West Texas and South Texas, very welcome rain, western Oklahoma. Over the last couple of weeks, we've actually had this pattern. It's very scattered. There are areas that have received less than a quarter inch, or less than a tenth of an inch, next to areas that have received up to a half inch or an inch. So it's quite scattered. Now, if we look over the last week, we do see that eastern parts of Texas and Oklahoma, western parts of Arkansas received no rain at all. So from this area right in here, very dry. Rest of the area, very scattered precipitation, but the scattered area really extended right through here over the western part of Texas. Now, if we average that out for the week, the departure from normal, we get either surplus or deficit, and it does show that with very few exceptions, most of the South experience deficits of precipitation relatively modestly, about up to an inch, although some of that darker yellow indicated up to 2 inches or so. Now, I thought it was interesting to show the past 30 days percent of normal, because we reversed a trend that set up in spring. Now that we're heading into late spring and now into early summer, we do have a different pattern here, and you can actually see the western part here. It's very scattered. It's a little hard to see, but that blue and green is above normal. You can see there's a little bit more above normal over scattered areas of the west, and the dry signal is over the east and the central part of the state. So that's a reversal of what we saw in spring. It'd be nice to get some precipitation everywhere this time of year, but right now it looks like there's a little bit more that has formed over the last couple weeks, or at least over the 30-day period over the west, with drier conditions over the east. If we look at the number of rain days in the last 30 days here, really the conclusion to this is it's pretty scattered. Areas in brown are showing days without much rain over the last 30 days, a relatively low amount, anywhere from 0 up to about 5 or 6 days. And you can see that central core of surplus rainfall over the central part of the state. And I know I have a lot of my subscribers in this region, very dry. And then as we get over the western part of the state, very scattered. See some areas of green here and some areas of brown, so it's very scattered. Now, over eastern part of Oklahoma, over the last 30 days, primarily over the early part of that period, you can see a bit more precipitation. Now, that amplified pattern is going to bring, mainly bringing the energy, and these are these pockets of energy, mainly to the east of our area. But some of it will brush our area, and we will have that climatological band of scattered precipitation. I'll talk about that in just a minute. As we get towards later in the week, it might lift a little bit further to the north. But I really think this is a pattern, at least this week, is a relatively quiet pattern. You're between the area of the real hot temperatures over to our west, and then the areas of more persistent precipitation to the east. And actually, I wanted to point out that this pattern looks like it's going to continue right through the 6 to 10 day period. So it does look like this will be a persistent pattern, like I've been saying. And right now, at least out through the next 10 days into around July 9th or so, I really don't see any breaking of this type of pattern. So the rain forecast, I want to go through a couple models here. First one is a model for the next 7 days. This is not one that a forecaster made. This is one that just raw model output, and it shows pretty similar to last week. We do have some scattered precipitation over western parts and central parts of the state of Texas, western Oklahoma, but there's still a very big area of dry weather as well right through here. So it's going to be very hard to say where this is going to develop this week, but I do think over the western part of the state, I think scattered is the term here. Now, if we look at the rain forecast the forecaster made, what we see here is, again, about a ½ inch on the average, ¼ inch to ½ inch over south and west. And then as we get up into Oklahoma, very dry conditions, as well as northern parts of Texas. You can see, as I mentioned, under the area of high pressure over to our west, much dry and hot, and then to the east, here's that signal with very wet weather. So we're sort of in the middle here, where we're getting a little bit of the type of weather that they're getting in the east, and also a little bit in the west. I did want to mention in the 6 to 10 day period, the cool temperatures look like they're going to be settling over Kansas and Oklahoma, so temperatures will be below normal into the 6 to 10 day outlook. And if we look at precipitation in the 6 to 10 day, there is some sign that there could be a little bit greater increase in scattered precipitation over parts of the area, especially Oklahoma and North Texas. But these models, as we get many days out like this in summertime, are very much, I wouldn't put a whole lot of confidence in them, but I do present them just, so we can follow the continuity of how they're going. Here's another one, 6 to 10 day. This one here is showing that generally, for the most part over the region, dry. And I think even that green is dry. But look at the same pattern, wet to the east and sort of scattered to the west. And then as we get into the 8 to 14 day, you can see not a whole lot of change. So I think we're in this type of pattern where because we're between these two systems, we really can't say that we're predominantly under one or the other. I can't say it's going to be totally dry, but I can't say it's going to be totally wet either. It's going to be just some generally widely scattered. So scattered showers and storms, at least this first week, mainly west and south Texas. Week 2, scattered. It's a little bit hard to pinpoint where they will be, but I think the takeaway is over this weekly period, or maybe 2-week period, I think it's going to average below normal, both temperatures and precipitation. Now, we'll be providing a lot of information this week. I think I'll get my newsletter out later this week, and my outlook as well. So I wish you all a happy 4th of July, and I will be talking with you again next week.